The Cats with an absolutely dominating performance, beating Alabama 117-95 to go to 19-8 on the season with 4 games to go and beat a top, well, I guess Alabama was 13th team in an awesome Rupp Arena. You can give us a shout. Billy will open it up at the end of this segment. When you look at this game, there's a lot of ways to go and a lot of things to talk about. But to me, the most interesting way to look at it is to say Alabama shot 57% from the field and was never in the game after the first 8 or 10 minutes. I mean, you shoot 57%, you probably think you're either going to win. Well, you probably think you're going to win. And they lost by 22 points. At one point, they were shooting 54% and they were down 35. Kentucky absolutely offensively was a machine. I mean, they were a machine. Kentucky shot 63% from the field. They were 13 for 24 from 3. At one point, they were 13 and 8 of 18. Justin Edwards' career game goes 10 for 10 from the field, which this stat, again, I love Kentucky basketball history stats because, we have such a rich history, so I like to think about this stuff. Justin Edwards, that's the third most field goal attempts made in a game where you don't miss one in UK history. Kenny Walker was 11 for 11 once, and Rodney Dent was 12 for 12 once. And now Justin Edwards, who is not a big, now neither is, Kenny was kind of played a similar position, but 10 for 10. Only the third player in UK history to have double-digit field goal attempts and not miss one. Who would have ever imagined he would be that guy this year? But he has 28. Antonio Reeves was great again with 24. Big Z with 18 and played really well. Not just random points. Played really well. It was a perfect fit for him tonight with the way Alabama plays. And my biggest takeaway from tonight is when Kentucky plays this style that you just saw, better than anyone in the country right now. I mean, I think you could make a strong argument that the 3 best running offensive teams are Alabama, Kentucky, and North Carolina, and Kentucky has now beaten both of those other teams. So if you get in the tournament and you get against a team that likes to play like that, I like Kentucky's chances a lot because they kind of out-Alabama'd Alabama today. Hit more threes, got up and down the floor. They gave up 95 and were never in the game was never in doubt. That's pretty awesome. And it was interesting after the game listening to the coaches, and Nate Oates said something kind of interesting. He said, I sort of wonder if Cal's found his lineup because they may just – he goes, if you can't stop that offensive lineup, it doesn't matter if they can guard. And I've kind of wondered about that all year. I mean, the difference, though, is how good offensively they can be when Justin Edwards is like that. Because he went long stretches where he basically played 3 guards, Justin Edwards, and a big, whether it was Ivicic most of the time, Ugo a little bit. But Justin Edwards at the 4 playing like that, you can't guard him. And basically, if you look at it, both teams were scoring a lot the first 10 or 12 minutes of the game. And then Kentucky went on a run where Alabama didn't score for 10 possessions, and we built up a 12 or 14-point lead and never looked back from then. But if you go look at the way they played from about the 10-minute mark in the first half to the 10-minute mark in the second half, Edwards was playing the 4 most of that time, and they just they could not guard Kentucky because there's just too many offensive weapons. And the fact that he can be at the 4 and shoot threes like he did, he went 4 for 4. I mean, he's not going to do that every game, but that's still awesome. And then you had Reeves, who was great. Dillingham had good minutes. Wagner didn't play particularly well, but he still kept it going. Shepard made shots. Shepard had 6. It felt like he had more than that, but he or 8, but he had 6 assists. So you get a game like that, that lineup, you can't play that lineup against everybody, but that lineup of Shepard, Reeves, Dillingham, Edwards, and Z, they could score 150 points. Now, they might give up 140, but if they're shooting like that, I don't know that it matters against some teams. Now, can they do it against a team that plays physical and grinds it out? That was a question Bill Raftery talked about during the game, and I don't know the answer to that. I mean, you look at Kentucky's wins. They've beaten a certain kind of team. Their best wins are against teams that are pretty good offensively. North Carolina, Alabama, and Auburn. Their worst losses are against teams that are physical and slow it down. So we'll see. But they get a team like this in the tournament, they're not losing. And it gets me to, well, there's 4 games left in the season. 2 of them are Arkansas and Vandy at home. Let's assume we win those. Although Arkansas is playing better, but let's assume we win those. That makes you 21-8. Then you're at Mississippi State and you're at Tennessee. Let's just say, for sake of argument, you split those. Be 22-9. All right? You'll go into the SEC tournament. You may or may not get a bye. It's going to be close. Depends on which of those games you win, probably. But you'd be 22-9, and I think you'll end up with that record as a 4 or 5. Would you want to be a 1 seed and see this team sitting there for you in the Sweet 16? I don't think you would, because when they play like this, they can beat anybody. And it's also worth noting, we've talked about a lot at various points the struggles of this team. But it is worth noting how close they are to being a 2 seed or maybe even contending for a 1. I mean, Rob Dillingham misses a free throw against Florida. They also chose not to foul, but either of those things go different. They probably win that game. It was kind of a fluky play there at the end of the LSU game, although in hindsight, Dillingham, if he was there, probably would have boxed out. And then at A&M, they had the ball and just turned it over. Those are 3 games that easily could have gone the other way. And what if they were sitting here 22-5 and going for a 1 seed? We'd have a completely different view. So this will be the most hard to anticipate March for Kentucky that I think we've ever had. I mean, in 2014, they went on an amazing run, but I don't know that we went into the tournament thinking they would. This year, they could go into the tournament, and there's almost nothing they could do that would surprise me. If they won the whole thing, it wouldn't be crazy. If they lost in the first round, depending on what their seed is, wouldn't be crazy. I mean, it's going to be nerve-wracking, but it's exciting because you still, as today showed, you still can't give up on this group because they just are so explosive when they're going. And I think it's worth also saying, obviously Justin Edwards played amazing, but he deserves a game like this. He's taken a lot of criticism. He underachieved for much of the year, but he is probably in the last 5 to 6 games, next to Reeves, been our most consistent player. It's kind of been under the radar because he hasn't put up huge points, but he's been our most consistent player, and he's become a really good defender. And Cal stuck with him the whole time. A lot of people, myself included, were saying, man, why does he keep starting him? Well, it's paying off right now. And if he stays consistent, he gives you an option, especially if Cal's willing to play him at the 4. He gives you an option to just become unguardable offensively. At the 3, he's now a lot better than he was. But at the 4, I just think I don't know how you guard this team if he's playing at the 4 the way he is. So it was a great win, great crowd. Nice to get a win at home in that kind of environment. We've had 3 really good environments here in the second half of the year, and it was nice to get a victory in one of them. And now go to Mississippi State on Tuesday night, another midweek game in a random SEC town, and we need to get a victory.